The first 2 game weeks of FPL have taught us a lot. There are a lot of you considering activating your wildcard, making unlimited changes to your squad. So today I'm showing you a game week 3 wildcard draft. What is up everyone, FPL Harry here. Today we are having a look at a game week 3 wildcard draft, how I would be setting up if I was going to activate my wildcard going into game week 3. Spoiler, I'm not, but a lot of you are considering it, hence this video is here to help you. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes on the video, subscribe if you are new around here as well. We're going to try and hit 76,000 before the game week 3 deadline. Just a sort of note, this is a wildcard draft for game week 3. I personally don't think it is the right time. There have been a reasonable amount of things we've learned in game weeks 1 and game week 2. But if you look at a lot of the fixtures, like that Manchester United fixture against Nottingham Forest and the Arsenal fixture against Fulham in game week 3, I do think it's worth waiting until game week 4 if you do want to play an early wildcard, giving your Manchester United assets, giving your Arsenal midfielders one extra week given the fixture that they do have. Then when they actually play each other in game week 4, activating your wildcard going into that week and then selling your assets there. But here is the draft. Personally, I would wait a week if you are considering an early wildcard. In goal, we do have Turner. He does stay as my favourite 4.0. You could go with Areola, but it doesn't necessarily look like Nottingham Forest are going to sign another keeper. I've been quite impressed with them during the start of the season with them defensively. It could be Areola at the same price, but West Ham and Fabianski, there could be rotation there. I still think I would go with Turner. Now I cannot believe it, but I've gone with Edison as my first choice goalkeeper. Manchester City have kept 2 clean sheets so far this season. One of the things going into pre-season that I actually got wrong, I didn't think they'd keep as many clean sheets early on, potentially because of how they ended last season. But 5.5, he is the most nailed route into that Manchester City defence. The likes of Akanji, Gvardiol are playing in their defence at the moment at a cheaper price, but I'm not set on them being nailed going into the remainder of the season. And when they do have Champions League, I think that'll be a headache. And if you are wildcarding, I would go with the most nailed options, and there are some great defensive picks. Now, moving into defence, despite the poor performance in game week 2, Chilwell does remain. He has gone up in price to 5.7, but you can afford this even if you only have 100 million to spend. 5.7 million given the opening fixtures that they do have, including, of course, Luton at home in game week 3. Chilwell stays. I have opted for a Arsenal defender still. Saliba has looked really promising. Of course, picking up a couple of bonus points in game week 2 as well. He is in there. He can rotate in and out of your defence depending on the fixtures, but I do think it's worth sticking with him. Of course, we are going to stick with Purvis Estupiñán, 5.2 million for him. The attacking threat, even with the difficult fixtures, I think it is worth the money to keep him. I don't see a lot of other defenders that I think will outscore him over the course of the whole season, so that means that he is a lock in this wild card. Then we have a choice of those cheap defenders. I've gone with Rico Henry. You could go with Botman, but their fixtures are not great until about game week 6 or so. You could also go with Udogie at Spurs, and him versus Henry is very, very close. I have Udogie in my draft from game week 1. Henry has looked really, really strong though, so I've gone with him. He has gone up to 4.6, but if you want to go with Udogie at Spurs, you can go there. Both have good clean sheet potential. Both have good attacking threat as well. There's not much to choose between them. And the 4.0 we have gone with is Kabore of Luton Town. Again, the fixtures are not great. They do have one good fixture in the next few at Wolves at home where you might want to start him, where there is a difficult fixture for the likes of Saliba and Estupiñán in the same week. So you could sub Kabore in for just that 1 week. But that is the defence. Moving into midfield, things look a little bit different. We have gone with Odegaard for our Arsenal midfielder. Now, we don't necessarily know he's going to keep penalties, but he did, of course, take the penalty in game week 2. If you fancy Saka, I do think it's worth keeping one Arsenal midfielder in your draft because of how good their fixtures do look. I favoured going with Odegaard just, of course, because he took that penalty. Saka's underlying data is not that great. Martinelli was taken off early, so I have favoured moving for Odegaard. I have also kept one Manchester United midfielder in Bruno Fernandes. They are top for expected chances created so far this season and have only scored 1 goal. 4.6 expected goals and 1 goal scored. Bruno Fernandes has been so focal in that. He has had chances, he's created chances. He should have got some attacking returns. So I am keeping him if you're going to wildcard as well. They do, of course, have Nottingham Forest this week. You want a piece of that Manchester United pie. And then we have 3 mid mid-price midfielders. I've gone with Eze, Mitoma, and Brian Mbeumo in this. You only need to necessarily start 2 of them every week, but you can rotate them in and out of your team depending on the fixture they have. Eze might drop in price, so be careful. Don't own him until later on in the deadline. Bring him in once he does drop in price. Mitoma has risen in price. The fixtures are mixed, so you again can rotate him, and Brian Mbeumo looks so good. I just think all of them offer such good value that at their prices, I find it really hard to drop any of them. Now, Eze and Crystal Palace has been mixed, but they have started with some difficult fixtures. So I do still think that it is worth giving him a punt at the price that he is at. With the money that you save with going with those 3 mid-price mids, you have the money to go up front and spend all the money that you have there. So Haaland, Watkins and Jackson is your front 3. I do think it's worth keeping hold of Watkins. It is worth taking a punt on Jackson given the fixtures. And of course, Erling Haaland is Erling Haaland. He is not going to go anywhere. I spoke about Jackson in my 5 players to buy video. If you haven't watched that, make sure you go and check that out as well. That I discuss in a lot more detail about why I want to own him, but he is getting chances. Hopefully he can finish them with the fixtures that they have coming up. Now, you're probably thinking, Harry, this gives you a real benching headache, but looking at the fixtures they have in game week 3, you'd bench Turner, you'd bench Rico Henry, and you'd bench Kabore. And then looking at the midfield, looking at the attack, you'd probably bench Eze away at Brentford. Then you can bring him in next week when Watkins does go away to Liverpool, and Eze, Mbeumo and Watkins rotate really nicely over the next few game weeks. So it does well, it does work, even though the bench looks pretty strong if you are building this squad. There is not that many premium assets that I think are worth owning at the moment. So if you don't want to have such a strong bench, you could just downgrade Eze to a 4.5 and just leave the money in the bank for when there is an asset. Give yourself the flexibility. But right now, you can build such a strong squad. And if I was wildcarding, I would look something like this, I think. So let me know what you think about this wildcard. What would you change? What would you include? Would you have more or less Manchester United and Arsenal? Let me know what you think. The only big one I think not in here that people will want is Phil Foden. I just don't necessarily see a place that I want him in my midfield. I do think when Champions League starts, there will be rotation in the Manchester City team. Now, you might get a couple of game weeks out of him, but then it might become an issue. If you do want to start with Phil Foden over Bruno Fernandes or over Martin Odegaard, I have absolutely no problems with that. But I do think the fixtures for them this week are really nice, and I have favoured that just because I'm not 100% nailed on the minutes for Phil Foden this week and over the next few. Phil Foden's a great asset, but it's pretty close between those 3. So let me know what you think. Drop any questions you have about wildcard, about your team in general in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. Smash that like button. Of course, we're going to try and hit 1,000 likes on the video as always. There will be a team selection video as well and a deadline stream before the game week 3 deadline to get all of your questions answered as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll be back again very soon.